In the last 2 years, we've seen a catastrophic reduction of companies coming to the European region. And it's not to do with Brexit. This is to do with European medical device regulations. I see things happening in America that would really solve problems in the NHS, but they're not coming here because it's too difficult and we're a tiny market now.
The NHS has been failing for 50 years and it will continue to fail for a long while.
We've got 7.5 million patients on a waiting list. That's a big enough problem. And it's medical devices that are going to solve those problems.
We love the NHS until something goes wrong. We don't tolerate any error. You have any idea how complicated it is? I struggle to see where this whole thing is going. Do you have a sense of where this is going? Michael Branagan-Harris is all about getting medical technology to patients faster. His company, Device Access, has been extremely successful at doing this into the UK, into the NHS for ages. But it has become incredibly difficult. We chat to him about why regulations in the EU and hence the UK are stopping new technologies reaching the UK market. And as a country, we are now too difficult, too small a market to make it worthwhile to overcome this difficulty. And we talk about how we can change that. It's a super important chat. Check it out. Today, we are joined by Michael Branagan-Harris. Michael is founder and CEO of Device Access, a consultancy specializing in market access, pricing, and reimbursement specifically for MedTech and diagnostic medical devices for the NHS. The company's goal was to gain NICE approvals and NICE, which leads to NHS recommending use of new and novel technologies, which ultimately improve the medical benefits for patients. Get great technologies to patients faster is his mantra. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, really good to see you. Nice to be back.
Lovely to see you, Michael. Friend of the firm, friend of the podcast. So obviously your speciality is the MedTech space. And, you know, we chatted the other day and it was clear that an environment that was quite positive in the UK in the sense of the NHS and some of the systems, and you've been very successful in your career actually getting stuff into the NHS. You felt that this wasn't necessarily the happy place it used to be. Is that fair?
No, it's the environment has changed dramatically. We were responsible for getting over 50 medical devices through NICE, leading to accelerated availability for patients. So, I mean, NICE helped hospitals to be reassured that they were making the right changes in care pathways and using the technologies that have been clinically and economically proven. So that was great. But to do that, you need to have a sort of a good supply of technology coming to the UK and to Europe as well. And in the last sort of 2 years, we've seen a catastrophic reduction of companies coming to the European region. And it's not to do with Brexit. This is to do with European medical device regulations. So everything you buy, electronics, etc., have this thing called a CE mark on, and medical devices need those on as well. And sort of what happened, because of a small handful of medical devices that sort of went wrong, including metal-on-metal hip replacement implants, vaginal meshes, the sort of breast implant stuff, the European Union decided to start changing the regulations. And that has made it much, much more difficult for companies to get regulatory approval. And Europe was always the place that the traditional US medtech companies would come from the US, and Europe was the first market they would go to because the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, was much more challenging, much more difficult to get FDA approval. So companies would predominantly go to Germany and the UK. So we would enjoy technologies before the Americans got them, and they were invented by Americans. So, and that went on for sort of decades, really. I mean, you think about the technologies that are in the NHS today, and most of them, I'd say, are developed in North America. And these are the things that we've all, I can't say taken for granted, but there's certainly not the celebration that we see in America about what impact medical devices have on people's lives. But ultimately, these technologies have made made it possible for people to have day surgery. So gallbladders out, lots of minimally invasive treatments that used to result in overnight stay in hospital and extended operating theatre sessions, and now, done in a very fast time with keyholes or minimally invasive approaches like you see in cardiology. So we've enjoyed all these things, but now, because of the there's three things going on here. The regulations in medical devices. The second thing, which is the CE mark. The second thing that's happened is investment in medical devices has been dramatically reduced because, the global financial crisis. So we've seen fewer companies getting funding, this sort of startup companies. And that's resulted in many investors insisting that if you're going to launch a new medical device, you go to the United States first. And that's happening. I mean, even for UK medical device companies we're talking to that are developing medical devices using taxpayers' money in the UK are launching in America first because the investors insist on it, but also it's a great market. It's far easier to get through the FDA and get approval, and you've got a massive market of 360 odd million people. So news is that we are, and I say the European region, and not seeing anything like the numbers of new products coming to the market that we used to, and it's going to be some time until that changes. In March 2023, the government announced that they were going to inject £10 million into the MHRA, which is our body that looks and regulates and approves, regulatory approves medical devices. And the announcement said that from 2024, the UK was going to be the best place to launch a medical device, and that they would take regulatory approval in other markets as a tick box for getting, fast tracked into the UK. And unfortunately, not a lot's happened in MedTech. It's really not really anything has happened in that space. So there was promise of the government helping to accelerate these products into the UK, but it's not really happened. So we're not seeing the tech that we used to. And I think the sad thing, I'm very passionate about the industry that I'm in, but the biggest disappointment is that I'm seeing technologies, because I study the markets, I see things happening in America that would really solve problems in the NHS, but they're not coming here because it's too difficult, and we're a tiny market now. If you look at our regulatory approval system, we have the CE mark, we have the UK CA mark, which is a far easier program for approval, but unfortunately, in the eyes of the Americans and the investors, we're seen as a too small market to focus on. So unfortunately, we're not seeing anything like the numbers of great technologies coming to this area of the world anymore.
So if we break this down into bits, one, let's just be clear, because people won't necessarily be, a medical device is not a drug. It's not, I don't know what they define it as. It's it's a bit of tech that you use somewhere.
Well, it can be anything from a walking stick to a pacemaker to a heart valve to a piece of mesh for a hernia. I mean, medical devices are X-ray machines, MRI machines. Anything that happens to you in a hospital generally involves a medical device, from a stethoscope to everything that happens is from the cannula in your vein to a syringe. They're all medical devices. They're all different classes of medical devices. And
the regulation on medical devices is lower, isn't it, than doing drugs and things like this, which are you've got to do more trials and more stuff on the basis that it's more of a functional, or it's more of a piece of equipment. It doesn't, it's not necessarily going in your body, for years on end. I mean, is that what else could be something big? It could be a medical device. It could be a drug. What else needs approval?
Well, yeah. I mean, going back to what you said, different medical devices have different, I'm going to bore the audience with this, but there's different levels of approval and evidence required, because, something that...
a heart valve's a bit different.
A heart valve is an implantable device. Therapeutic devices, where they may put something inside you. Each technology has its own requirements, but they are, regulations differ between, how invasive or whether they're implantable but I'm not going to bore the audience with the detail.
No, but just to get a layout of the land, because obviously to you it's second nature. But okay, there's different levels of medical device regulation.
Yeah.
We've then got, as usual in life, a few bad apples, a few errors with medical device. And I feel like we live our entire life like this, that there's like, 1% of issue or whatever, and then we all get regulated, one bad actor, and now we've all got to live with a law which makes our lives unpleasant. It's like trying to use the internet.
Yeah.
But so there were a few problems, vaginal meshes, breast implants, sort of issues with some of these things that happen. The reaction, therefore, unfortunately, is to make it all much more difficult.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you could take a pragmatic view to say, well, if you make it easier, overall, more people's lives are going to be better and saved, but you're going to have these incidences of crappy products, and that'll be a big deal. But, overall, 99% of all this other stuff that happened was so much better. But as usual, we end up with that. Then we're left with a separate CE mark in the UK, which replicates you said it's easier.
UKCA.
It is easier than the European. But as a result of not giving access to Europe and only giving access to the UK, the Americans are thinking, well, it might be a bit easier. But I always thought there was another level, which it was the sort of, and as a wife who works in it and is sadly watching it crumble, there was a second level of which the NHS, the fact that we had a central source of data and everything was what was very attractive to them for testing it. Is that not still a pull for these companies?
It's incredible. The opportunity for solving problems in a single payer healthcare system like the NHS, you're right, with data running through it, which we as an organisation have access to, is incredible. I mean, there's two parts of this story. One is the frustration of the environment that we're in, which is affected by regulations, investors, and also the industry. The industry have to really up their game massively now. And that's because certainly in this market, in the NHS, they fail to show value. They don't. Most of them never show or can never describe the problem that their technology solves for a population. We say sell the problem. Sell the problem you solve, not the product. Can you sell the problem that your technology solves in the NHS, not the product? I've done it lots of times. To do that, you need to understand what the pain points, what the pressures are, what the NHS needs to solve problems. And we've got 7.5 million patients on a waiting list. That's a big enough problem. And it's medical devices that are going to solve those problems. Anything from, you can't just pop a pill and solve a problem. You can with some things, but these interventions are going to help drive efficiency and operational gain in the NHS. And the opportunity has never been so good for them to come in and change the NHS, because you touched on it, manpower. To get these specialists to do the work and diagnose, and doctors and other medical professions in the NHS, they're very expensive people. They're very takes a long time for them to be trained, and technology can come some way in helping to do things differently, like artificial intelligence and digital things. So you can replace a lot of things with technology, but we've now got a problem where we're not getting technology in like we used to. And we have an industry that that often fails to show what difference their technology is going to make. And that makes it difficult for them to sell their products.
What about the British? It's supposed to be something we're world leaders in, Cambridge, Oxford, life science. Is there not lots of great technology coming out of the UK? Are they using the UK market as their key target?
I am being completely honest. We've been doing this for almost 15 years now, and we work with. It's got to be thousands of companies. Talking to them and hearing their story and seeing their offerings, but we see very, very, very few medical devices that have been developed in the UK that are actually. I hate overusing the word innovative, but there's very, very few that make it. There's lots of products out there that are sort of similar to others. We can talk about those. But in my 15 or so years in helping get technologies into the NHS, I can only think of one main company that's actually developed something, and it's a Welsh company called Creo. That have developed something that really is going to make a difference to people's lives.
That's astounding. I mean, even though, with great respect, you're only seeing, you're a fish in a river, aren't you? You're seeing certain water pass you by, but. I mean, that's astounding that, what is the life science industry in the UK? Is it a drug industry?
I think it's pharma. And, but, there's lots of companies here that are subsidiaries of, parents, but we don't see many UK companies launching, developing and launching products here. That they just, they're often me too's of other products, and I'm not going to talk about any as examples, but no, we've relied on so much over the last predominantly from the US, some things from Europe. Israel is a fantastic hub of innovation, as well as Japan, but it is predominantly US, and they're the ones that really do develop the greatest technologies that we've ever seen.
So traditionally speaking, they would develop these, and perhaps in theory, this is still the same thing. If I'm a medical device company listening to this, I mean, we're not painting a particularly great picture, but, there's still the opportunity of this great data set. There's huge problems that need to be solved here.
Yeah.
You would traditionally, NICE is an independent body that provides advice to the various trusts. So the NHS is built with loads and loads of different trusts, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it would say, we as NICE, National Institute for Clinical Excellence, say, we've had a look at this. We think it's good. It's worth using. And that information would get, the trusts would know that, or you have to then go sell it to the trust, do you? I mean, just doing the very basic building blocks of how you approach it.
Yeah, so NICE would look at a new treatment and make sure it's safe and it works. So as an example, one of the technologies we championed and got into the UK was a new treatment for benign prostatic hyperplasia, enlarged prostate, big problem for men, and introduced a treatment called RESM, which used steam to blast the tissue. So it was a minimally invasive, fast operation. And NICE looked at that and they looked at it from a safety perspective and gave it the tick to say this is safe. And then they looked at it to see if it's affordable and good use of NHS resources. They gave a great big tick for that. Then they put it on a MedTech funding mandate and making it easier for hospitals to fund.
A MedTech funding mandate.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means telling the hospitals you should buy this.
It was a financial assurance, really, that funding would follow. That it was shown to be affordable, and MedTech funding mandate. It sort of exists, but they've not added anything to it for a number of years now. It was a program which led to an additional level of reimbursable coverage, and that's one of the other issues we have with the NHS is that versus other healthcare systems is there's no simplified mechanism of reimbursement. So when you look at pharmaceuticals, the drug companies spend millions, billions on developing drugs. The mechanism of reimbursement is you go and see your GP. Out comes the prescription pad. They scribble something illegible on it, give it to you, take it to the chemist, and you get it. And that's how that's the mechanism of funding, is that it's prescribable, but you can't prescribe things like, digitals, AI. You can't, it's very difficult to make the availability of technologies in the home available unless you can swallow them. In other words, they have to be drugs.
Is it difficult in reality, or is that just a bias towards pharma? Or?
Well, it's just the system is built. The system was always built around pharma, and going back to when I started my consultancy back in 2010, NICE were only just starting to look at medical devices in a different way to pharmaceuticals. So, they've come a long way, but NICE are now a completely different organisation to how they were. Well, they're not seeing the technologies that they used to. They're not seeing
because
new
the
things
Americans
because
aren't coming.
We're not bringing them. I'm not taking technologies to NICE, so that doesn't help the situation. But because the industry fails to show value. NICE's role now, working closely with NHS England,
the industry fails to show value.
Yeah.
The medical device industry fails to document. Why?
They fail to show why their products, how their products work, and the value to the
they're
healthcare
bad at
system.
explaining it. They're all scientists talking about science.
Yeah. So the problem is that and this goes. I know we're going to talk about this. Is about the approach used by medical device companies in bringing technologies into the market. Are the principles of marketing, which is product, price, place, promotion. So make a product, price it, find a place, and promote it. That's the principles used when you were to sell sausages to a supermarket, and it sort of doesn't work in medical medical devices because you're dealing with complex scenarios. The science of the human body, the organization of a healthcare system, which is fragmented and difficult, and we believe that the way to bring technologies to patients is looking under three sort of pillars. One of them being, it's all about generating evidence that technologies are good enough so that policymakers and decision makers approve them and there's no delay. So it's about a strategy around reducing uncertainty because you're dealing with human beings here, and that's very different to sausages in supermarkets. But you have to make sure that the technology does what it says it does. And the three sort of pillars of that is does it help population health? There's no point in having a treatment or a technology if it doesn't help the population. Does it improve quality of care, and is it affordable? They're the three elements of the important parts of the ingredients you need to demonstrate with medical devices to show that they work and to accelerate the decision making for.
But that was what you would do as a business. So you're still there to offer that service. You're still there to.
We do
to help people how to explain this.
Yeah,
but. Nice is that people aren't coming to the technology though, not because that's an element of it. Yeah. They haven't been very good at explaining it. A company like yours has come along, and I think you've come at it from a commercial angle rather than from we're a bunch of scientists. We're terribly excited about this piece of technology we've developed, and they're not knowing how to pitch it. Basically, like you pitch it to investors.
Yeah. It's how you develop something, and a lot of companies they focus on affordability. So my product is cheaper than that product, but that's great. But does it help population health, and does it improve quality of care? You have to have population health benefit, quality of care benefit, and you need to show it's affordable for society, whichever country you go to. And that's why we often see challenges with companies in America where you have very highly reimbursed medical devices trying to launch them in European markets where the coverage and money around is far lower. So,
wait, slow down. So the question we're trying to resolve is why has NICE changed? But you've just said something interesting there that why are they reimbursed? Because it's an insurance-based market. They can get paid more for their stuff. They come to the UK, which is mostly NHS, although that's changing quite rapidly, I think. And therefore, they're not going to get big bucks off the NHS, but they could have a nice single customer. No, there wouldn't be a single customer, but they could have a nice market.
Yeah. It's a very recognised and respected market. To get a tech into the NHS is meaningful in certainly in America. Yeah.
Okay, so NICE is sitting there and it's changed. People are bad at explaining these devices, but they always were. So that's not a change necessarily. Yeah. I mean, you on the other hand are not seeing the deal flow. You're just not seeing the Americans say, "Let's all go to the UK." Yeah. And they're not coming there because it's become harder to get these marks, and they're thinking, bugger it, we'll do it in America. Yeah. Then NICE does lots of things. Why does that change NICE so much? Or something else must have changed at NICE.
Yeah, there's been a fundamental change in the management structure of NICE. Lots of people, really top people, have left NICE, which is unfortunate. A lot of scientists and clinical specialists have gone. But without them seeing the new technologies, their role now is an extension of NHS England procurement to find the best deals. That
becomes a price-based because it's like we're not innovating.
Exactly. And
it's about price.
Exactly. So they've gone from, the sort of technologies that I brought in to the country, one of them I mentioned earlier, to looking at bed frames, patient transport system and ostomy bags. So they're looking for the cheapest heart valves, they're looking for the cheapest bed frames, they're looking for the cheapest patient transport systems. We got 7.5 million patients on a waiting list. They're not going to actually solve the waiting list. They're just looking for cheaper products.
Do you think part of this is, whether it's be COVID or whether it be, my brother-in-law who works in the NHS, I remember saying to him about, the NHS is failing, and he turned around to me and said, Andy, the NHS has been failing for 50 years and it will continue to fail for a long while. As in this is a long journey, like the decline of Britain. Is that part of what's going on here? And I'm not entirely clear all the elements that are causing it to fail so much.
Well, is it failing? It's just that we enjoyed a time when technologies were coming here, and Europe as well. Let's be clear, it's not just the UK that's being affected by this. It's a pan-European problem, is that these technologies are not coming to the European region in anything like the volume and the quality that they used to. They're just not coming here because the US market is the one that the investors say you must launch in the US first, because it's a guaranteed massive market and a far simpler mechanism of approval in America than getting approval in 7, 8, 9 different countries.
Are you aware that if it's a pan-European problem, are Europe reconsidering their decisions, or everyone's heads in the sand?
We're talking about the EU here. So
yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Right.
What is and by that I infer that they don't. I mean, they made a decision that it won't feed up, or it's just too slow to make a decision, or
it's just due to regulations, and they love regulations. Look what they're doing to the car industry; they're killing that. So there's no logic to what they do, and we can't change that. We can talk about it, but I don't understand. Unfortunately, here though, we're dealing with human beings and their life and quality of life, and medical devices have a huge impact on everybody's life. You're wearing glasses; they're medical devices. Literally. People take these things for granted, but yeah, we're not seeing the things that
what about the private sector? What's going on there?
Well, the private sector did a remarkable job of helping the NHS through COVID, and people, there's so much misinformation. Essentially, the benefit with the private hospitals were that they were available to treat elective patients, so those that were booked for things like cataracts and hip replacements, and there was a guaranteed bed. They don't deal with the consequences of emergency admissions. They don't deal with the consequences of flu pandemics and all that sort of stuff that blocks beds and makes the hospitals difficult organisations to deal with these unelected, non-elective patients coming in. So the private sector did a remarkable job of treating patients, and they were paid. What people forget is that the actual amount of money paid for hip replacement in a private hospital or an NHS hospital is exactly the same amount of money. There's no difference. Don't get more money for being treated in a private hospital. It's the same, what's known as tariff. So yeah, the private sector, I think they do a remarkable job and work very efficiently. But we needed those beds. We still need those beds. We need that capacity, and they're there to help, and they generally work quite well.
You aware? I mean, it's interesting to see, and it's not necessarily in your domain, but for the sake of conversation, I mean, as the NHS. I mean, it seems to somewhat be turning into an emergency service in many ways, or personal experience, but experience amongst so many people I know, that so many requests for things are just denied now. It's sort of at a level of like, well, if it's not critical, we'll have to say no. And then the private medicine is becoming, we would advise companies now to get private healthcare. Although I would warn you now, the costs are going up incredibly. If I give you an example, our firm provides private healthcare. It has doubled every year for the last 3 years. So we're now sitting there with a state of facts saying, wow, okay, if people keep claiming, which we don't want to stop, but we're like, oh my God, where is this going, as a thing? Because, if it becomes so expensive, then you're like, I don't know. I struggle to see where this whole thing is going. Do you have a sense of where this is going? Whether the NHS, because some people feel it would just be emergency care and serious, if you got cancer, they might help you out,
I think that, they can, they do a remarkable job. I think I think the NHS is a good organisation, but it's, the pressure it's under with 7.5 million patients waiting, and it's really, really challenging. But I think there is a place for private healthcare, and I sort of agree with some other people that were talking about other healthcare systems like the French system. I was talking to my French colleagues. We're part of a pan-European company, and I said, "Are you happy with your French healthcare system?" And they all are. I think it's a really good system. So. Other healthcare systems, maybe they should be considered now. Maybe,
but isn't it a huge problem? They have a huge, the whole, it costs too much, the French system. They have a huge problem funding it. But I mean, actually give us a sense of Europe, if you have a sense of it. Healthcare is supposed to be very good in Spain, isn't it? France,
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can't talk in detail, but
No, roughly.
in terms of medical devices and where they go and the mechanisms of getting them in there, each market has its challenges. And but no, I mean, I think the days of people worrying about falling ill in Spain and having to go to a Spanish hospital or French hospital, I think they've got, there's some pretty good healthcare systems out there. But the French one, I think people say is one that works well. So maybe we do need to.
Is there an obvious difference you're aware of?
Just the ability to see people quicker. But I mean, these private coverage that you can get now with Bupa and other organisations, you can get to see a GP on the same day. And but yeah, it's just demand and pressure in the system. And I think there's a long way. There's a lot that medical devices can do to help that, to to bring care close to home. Some people are wearing. I notice you're wearing an Apple Watch that can do ECGs on you and heart rates, and there's so much tech out there to help people now.
So if I'm a medical device company from whatever country, but let's just say whether I'm from Australia or America or the man on the moon, what's your advice about, I guess, from your knowledge within the European sphere? What would you say to them at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the beginning of development of medical devices, is that one of the problems is that, we talked about it earlier, product, price, place, promotion, making a product, pricing it, finding a place and promoting it. It sort of doesn't work. One of the most important things that medical device companies need to think about is, before they do anything, is do some early economic modeling to make sure that their idea will result in something that's affordable for society and affordable for them as a business. And we're talking about profit. Sorry, it's not a nice word to use these days.
In Britain, we can't talk about it, but apparently we're in business.
But we are in business. So, at the end of the day, you need to make sure you understand what you're up against. So who's your comparator? What is it you're up against in terms of your technology? So taking the device I was talking about with using steam to ablate prostates, the comparator was surgery. So having something that could be done in 15 minutes versus something that took an hour, something that could make you discharged from hospital, 2 hours later versus an overnight stay. These are quality of care and population health benefits that there's a lot more work needs to go into making sure that these developments, these ideas in medical devices are going to result in patient benefit, care provider benefit, payer benefit, and product benefit. And product benefit is about profit. So there's a lot of things going on in MedTech. And I think that the other thing, obviously, investment's more challenging if you're not going to America now. And then you've got, this is a very interesting report, Future of MedTech, that came out by Roland Berger.
Yeah, hold that
studied. Up. There you go. Worth reading. Here we read about the future of MedTech, and really what it's telling me, interviews with 500-600 companies, that the future is companies focusing on their existing product lines. We have a situation where the medical sales people that run around hospitals and sell products are some of the highest paid salespeople in any industry. So they're very expensive people. They're very clever and smart people. But you've got high cost of driving sales. You've got higher cost of manufacturing medical devices because of inflation, higher costs of raw materials. So, you've got expensive staff, high cost developments, high cost consumer, development and materials. And then you look at any healthcare system in the world now, and they're trying to drive costs down. They're trying to make, they want better deal, particularly in the NHS. They want to, there's going to be a public sector spending review. So each hospital will need to justify what they're buying. And if they're buying medical devices, they're going to need to demonstrate that those medical devices are doing what they say on the tin, that they're working, they're efficient, they're safe, they're affordable, they give good quality of care and help the population. If they don't do that, they'll just stop buying them. And that's, we're starting to see that.
It's almost like you're saying you've got to think about marketing or, achieving those aims of quality and care, cost and everything much earlier in the stage. You come up with an idea, you're a scientist, you go and raise some money. It's a brilliant idea, it can help people. It's like someone needs to come in quite brutally from a business and marketing perspective and just say, that's not going to make a big enough difference.
Yeah.
And so don't bother.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we talk to companies, they say to us, and 99% of people say, so what is it you got? Well, listen, it's cheaper. And it's like, right. So you think that it's affordable, but is it going to improve quality of care? And is it going to help treat patients better? Is it going to improve population health? And they look puzzled. And where have you got your pricing from? How much are you going to sell this thing for? Well, we make it's $100. We'll sell it for 150 and we'll be retiring down to Nice in 3 years' time, and we're going to have our yachts and helicopters. And this is crazy.
Is this partly because even when you mention we've got to make profit, that's an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah,
it's one of those industries that people, we certainly have a problem with talking about money in this country, but the Americans are better at this, but there's almost a complete disconnect from us being quite brutal and quite, I don't know. It's like we're just not talking about the things we need to talk about because we're scientists and we do it because we're scientists. Don't talk to us about money. They have this problem amongst doctors. Doctors are partly badly paid because they're really shit at asking for money because they just feel like they shouldn't, and that's very bad of them or something. They just want to help people. We almost need a lobotomy in this country about just being okay talking about money, and it's a bit, I was thinking of another just bizarre example. I was thinking about the way we don't like people showing off money in this country, but they don't mind it in America. And that seems very gauche to us and a bit disgusting. However, I know people say the trickle down effect's bullshit and stuff, but if someone's going to go out there and splash the cash and throw it around, good for them. We should be like, yeah, well done, mate. You've made some money, throw it around, spend it. But we're like, conceal it, hide it, put it in a bank. And it's life science, I can imagine like that. There's just a real problem getting the scientists not to storm out of a meeting when they're told, I'm thinking extreme, isn't it? But you can imagine sitting down with them saying, this is, don't talk to me like a business person. Don't bring up money with me, and getting upset. And we got to get over that. We've got to be like, ultimately you could say it another way. What is the budget on someone's healthcare? Like, it's a really hard question, but it's like, are we saying, because the NHS has to deal with this all the time, because at the moment, apparently, we've all got infinite budget. If there's something that can keep me alive for another 3 months, then I think the NHS should just pay for it and give it to me, and the reality is, whatever that metric is, life per cost, is the reality that it's not infinite money for stuff. And so we need to be a bit more honest about that. And part of that is we need to stop accessing these services constantly when we don't need to. There's a sort of, I'm amazed there's not TV adverts that are like, listen, if you've got a cough for 24 hours, stay at home. Deal with it. It should almost be basic education. These are the symptoms we're looking for that are really worrisome. And you need to immediately come and see us. Otherwise, you go and see your GP and you get in line. And, it's that push and pull, is it? That we're not comfortable with money in the probably the biggest industry in the country, practically.
Yeah, it's a big industry. I mean, obviously pharma's very different, but the companies, you look at the development of medical devices and it's about bringing out, first generation, second generations. You look at how much you can pack into your Apple Watch these days and taking measurements and things. But yeah, I mean, these companies reinvest into developing the next generation, like you get with phones and other things. So I think, I know we talked a bit about money there, but it's about making sure that you hit the right balance of, affordability for healthcare systems and population, and also making sure that the company can continue to survive. And I've seen as many companies, when we've actually looked very closely at their value proposition and health economics, that are selling their product for half or far less than they could do. And if they could justify the cost, they could sell it for a lot more money. As half the companies think their product's worth a lot more than it actually is, and we get both types of scenarios, because at the core of what we do, it's about making sure that those companies go to healthcare systems, whether they're UK or in Europe, and make sure that they pitch their story right and get coverage and policymakers approving the use of them, and accelerating that, and to reduce any uncertainty that they're safe, that they're affordable, and they help people out. But Yeah, that's the goal. And the other challenge in MedTech, which we haven't touched on, is that pharmaceuticals have far longer patents. So when drugs are developed, the patents last a lot longer than they do with medical devices. So medical device companies have a much shorter time horizon.
Was it 15 years versus 50 or something?
It's probably something like that. I'm not a regulatory specialist, but there's pressure on for companies to get out and drive sales, and sometimes they go out and try and drive sales too early without developing. Well, most of the time they try and drive sales without developing a value proposition, and that's where they all complain about how difficult it is to sell into the NHS, and they can't, and the NHS is difficult, and they're not interested. And most journeys for medical device companies involve taking a product to a clinician, showing them the products, doctors saying, I like that. Yeah, let's buy a box, go and talk to Jack in procurement. You go down the stairs into a procurement office, you meet Jack, he's just ordered cornflakes and some crate bandages and boxes of gloves and whatever. And then you come along with a £15,000 medical device, and he's there making the decision. And the company often fails to show the procurement people what the value is and how it's going to help that hospital. So, it's the opportunity in the NHS, and the sort of work that we do is helping to drive those conversations in different areas of the hospital to get approval and recommendations. So with NICE now going into a different direction of looking at procurement and pricing, the work that we do is helping those companies to develop the right conversations with the right stakeholders.
You've got to change the narrative, and you've got to change your approach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not that we're here to pitch your services, but in essence, you're just saying, and I assume, you offer consultancy for these people, but in essence, you're saying, please, come and have these conversations to really get your head around where you are in the system, because you're blind otherwise. Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed investors don't push them to almost.
I'd love to talk to more investors. I mean, we have a healthcare system where we know how many people are waiting for diagnosis of all sorts of conditions or all sorts of
explain the data you have access to.
So, I mean, we've been very lucky we've been able to show and demonstrate NHS England, NHS Digital, the correlation between the work we do in the research by demonstrating that this technology would solve an NHS problem. We've done it for, we did it for 12, 13 years. We're able to correlate having access to patient level data, non-identifiable patient level data. We can understand how the NHS treats those populations. And when we apply new technologies to them, we can show the difference and the impact and positive impact for the patient, the provider, and the payer. So we sit on a huge amounts of data in our system, NHS data, and that enables us to look at that. But we also sit on the waiting list data. So where else in any industry do you have, an opportunity where what somebody did in the past, know exactly what they're going to do in the future. And we know that by individual hospital, we have access to the waiting list data. So when we see technologies that we're not seeing as many as we used to, but we think, well, this could really help, and let's see what difference it would make in nationally and by individual hospital. And these are the things that drive change and adoption, and that's the sort of work we do now. So we're working very much with companies that are already here, that are selling products, versus bringing new technologies in because they're not really coming to the region anymore.
I see. And actually you're explaining too, why is everyone getting all their referrals denied? Because there's a 7 million person waiting list, and they're basically like, we need no one on this list added unless it's absolutely vital, because we've got to get it under control. And in all of this, do you see optimism in the future? I mean, what are the things you're a glass half full person by nature, I would say, aren't you? What's probably your, don't know, depend.
Yeah, I think that I'm frustrated because you've got a healthcare system that needs medical device solutions, and you have an industry that needs to really get a grip and change the approach. And unfortunately, and we see this so often, is the people in the higher positions, the CEOs of the companies that we may talk to, are ex-salespeople that were knocking on doors selling products 20 years ago, which was a very different environment to what it is now. Even getting into a hospital is more difficult. So companies need to really think more carefully about their launch plans and their strategy of getting technologies into healthcare system. But no, I mean, on one side we've got an amazing opportunity in a fantastic healthcare system with data running all the way through it, and real need, for new tech, and a need for the companies to change the approach. But we have an industry that's very, very old fashioned in their approach and just thinks that they can sell on price.
Do you know much about, just out of on a very big picture level, what it's like in Japan or Korea or, these far off places that we hear little about? Is it different there?
I don't know so much about Japan and these other markets, but I mean, certainly Australia has a very good healthcare system. I worked out there for a year, working in bariatric surgery.
Bariatric is
obesity.
Obesity.
Yeah.
So it's called bariatric.
Bariatric is that. Yeah. So it was the involvement of using a technology called the lap band, which was made your stomach smaller, so you felt full sooner. And it worked really well. There's some interesting stuff going on in Japan at the moment, though. It's an interesting conversation that traditionally Japan was very proud of its manufacturing, car manufacturing business, and that's sort of being hit by the move to electric cars, despite Mr. Toyota, or whatever his name is, saying that this is crazy. We should just carry on making mechanical engines.
Toyota's resisted, hasn't it?
They have, but there's a lot of interest in Japan in developing new medical devices, because they need to put their money into something.
But they also don't do drugs in Japan, really. My friend lives in Japan,
right.
And he was explaining, even taking ibuprofen, the idea is you take the pain. They do drugs for, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but he was saying, for a surgery, they will sedate you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, where you would give people painkillers, even if you're a broken arm or you're having your leg cut off, or all sorts of things, you're supposed to just grin and bear it. That's mind blowing. But they because it's about purity. Shinto, the basic principle of Shinto, or the fundamental principle is purity, and they view drugs as impure. You only need to see that attitude to illicit drugs, which is just like it's off the scale. So medical devices surely would be a gold mine for them, because this is the. Out of interest, and we'll change tack, but what do you feel about pharma? Pharma, like as a word, we had an amazing guest yesterday, Greg, talking about the oil industry, which is obviously another one of those exactly. But pharma it's like a dirty word, but what do you feel about pharma? Do you feel the pharma industry's got things to answer for?
Well, look, at the end of the day, the MedTech industry need to look at how pharma do it. Pharma industry don't develop drugs, then work out how much to sell them for, and wandering around to procurement departments with a half sort of, half story about what this drug will do. This one's green, that one's blue. We'll do you 3 boxes if you buy it. That just doesn't happen in pharma. So they're brilliant at developing, value propositions and working, and that's why pharma are always at the forefront in healthcare systems. They get the coverage, they get the reimbursement, they get the simpler mechanism of reimbursement, as I mentioned, writing prescriptions, take it to the pharmacy. The whole joined up system is so simple. Whereas, MedTech's more difficult because of the money flow.
But why can't MedTech be in the chemist? There's a little bit of MedTech in there.
It's just, I've been trying to get this changed for, 15 years. You talk about telemedicine. Well, okay, let's put telemedicine into a house. The NHS will fund it. Who's paying for it? The hospitals are not going to pay for it because it's got nothing to do with them. It's all this moving around of cash. Now, the new structures with the integrated care boards, the new funding system that's come in, that's meant to have a better joined up approach between primary and secondary care, is all about making that budget work so that we can treat more people at home, because there's not enough beds. Now going into a time of year, November, December, January, where the NHS is under the most pressure with flu and pneumonia and all the other stuff that kicks off. So, it's really important that But
it's been incredibly. It's not for us to talk intense politics about the NHS, but only because I live with it with my wife. It seems just incredibly mismanaged. They seem to just add more and more management and try and get rid of more and more doctors. I'm sure you've seen, what are they called? They take nurses and they've tried to make these this new. They're called I can't remember their name. And they've come in as a sort of replacing doctors, but they had to take an ad down. But these are people with sort of 1 to 2 years. I think they get 1 year medical training or something like that, and then they're supposed to sort of take over doctors. Someone's not like running this thing in a sensible manner. Do you know what I mean? You can't replace 7 years of medical school in a year. Or if we could, we would.
But what you can do is you can use technology.
They're called medical physicians.
But what you can do is use technology that helps to diagnose patients. We talk about devices, we talk about diagnosis as well, is the ability to, the incredible diagnostic industry, which we work closely with, the ability to, to have a little vial of blood taken away and know whether you've got a bacterial or viral infection. These are things that are all out there that can help to fast track patients either in or out of hospital quicker and reduce the, the reliance on antibiotics.
Yeah, it's there's so much you want to be. A bit like, this is a massive industry, people can't run a small company well. I'm actually very sympathetic, but it happens to all of us. Some friends like, oh, it's just outrageous. They went into hospital and they got this wrong or something. I'm like, you have any idea how complicated it is? People mess up accounts. I don't kill anyone. The level of which, and we have very little, we love the NHS until something goes wrong. We love the medical industry and then they make one error. And dear sis, when she was dying, they put her on the Flurferatox or whatever, this really hardcore chemo, and you can't have anything cold. And they were serving her ice cream and putting her ice cold water, and I was just like, and she was like, no. And, you could get upset about it, but I'm like, well, they're going to get shit wrong. It could have shut her throat and killed her or something. But then people get up in arms about it and expect to sort of, 100% service. It's a sort of such a combination of factors that you need to be a bit more forgiving to the system, understand it is imperfect and it has all these problems. And then if you're a bit more open to mistakes, you'd be a bit more open to some medical devices won't work perfectly. Just because we've had one that's gone a bit wrong and it harms some patients and they're furious and they're on the TV and on social media and saying, da-da-da. So then we react and we massively regulate, but actually you're fucking everyone else. I mean, sadly, when something happens to you in a medical situation and maybe you lose someone through it, so maybe you're listening to this and you're actually really angry with what I'm saying, but ultimately you cannot stop mistakes, and mistakes are going to happen. Try and quantify to yourself how much you want to attack that situation, because the other thing that happens is medical professionals like my wife end up going into deep reviews, possibly losing their life, and these deeply skilled, caring people who will make mistakes. So I find this everywhere in society now. We don't tolerate any error. And if there is any error, it's publicly shamed, it's thrown out, it's on the TV, they're on Good Morning Britain, whatever. Oh, it's just outrageous. Everyone gets up in arms. And you got to you got to think that through. You got to think that through to say, well, do you know where that's going to go? That's going to go to regulation and everything's going to be, we'll get to a point where we can't do anything unless it's perfect and we're fucked.
And it's difficult. You're dealing with people's lives, but you're absolutely right. And I think this is where medical technologies can make a difference when you've got a healthcare system under so much pressure as the NHS. Can we get these people through the emergency room quicker, those that turn up? Can we diagnose them more quickly? Can we diagnose them close to home? All of these things involve medical technologies, diagnostics, the ability to change the care of patients that doesn't involve a drug, really. Wow. So when you think about the value of a really good consultancy like Device Access is, that we've been doing this for 15 years. We've seen no end of technologies, and we sort of know the festival. We know what this story is about in a way that has given us so much insight and knowledge and experience. And we know this. We know the customer. We know the industry. We know the technologies. We know the biology. We understand the economics. And that's we may look like a little company that sort of does this work, but there's great value in the work that we do.
It's just such a disconnect, isn't there? I mean, that's what I'm meaning. There needs to be more Michaels. It's like there's these massive organization and these little crazy startups, and you need the bridge. Without the bridge, unless you're lucky enough to have someone who you decide to do a startup or someone who's got that experience to say, listen, they don't care about any of that. Like that bit of translating is fundamental to every business. Every business needs someone, if you were trying to get something into into the food industry, you need to find someone who really understands the food industry and can tell you, this and this matter, that doesn't matter, and you're getting it wrong, and you're spending all your time worrying about something.
And we get that a lot. We get companies that their claims of benefit are, that the product does this to the patient, but it's not about that. It's what it's going to do to help the hospital get through their waiting list of 5,000 patients. It's going to influence and help a decision to be made in an NHS hospital. It's about operational gain. So, but the industry don't look at the the problem that the technology solves. It's always focusing on the features and benefits of the product and not what problem the technology is going to solve in a healthcare system.
I mean, you've been talking about it, but is there like what is bullshit in the industry? It could be a more idiosyncratic thing.
Yeah. It's all. We see so many products that claim they do something, and when we look at the evidence, all the inventors are on the clinical evidence. So that's a pretty common problem.
Why is that a problem?
Well, because
they're the inventors, self-certifying.
Exactly. We see that a lot. These companies saying, "Well, I had a call with somebody the other day. I spent an hour of my life talking to him about." He said he's done 15 papers, and I said, "Are you on any of the papers?" He said, "Yeah, I wrote all of them." I said, "Well, nobody's going to believe you, mate. It's like you need independent, peer-reviewed, published, presented evidence to show."
Isn't that though a problem in itself? I know we need peer-reviewed papers, but there are an enormous amount of costs and effort.
Well, there are, and that's the thing. That's the game that we're in. We're not dealing with sausages in supermarkets. We're dealing with people's lives.
Even that,
safety.
You probably need independent evidence.
You probably do now, yeah. But literally, it's about people's lives and the impact that you make. So no, it is scientific, and maybe that's the problem that people don't realise how serious this world is of medical devices.
Can you, in America, you can do that thing where you can say, well, this drug's not FDA approved. It's completely dangerous and illegal, but you want to have a world with it, you can go, can't you? You can just say, well, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to take it and I'm going to take my own risks. I mean, with any situation, obviously there's people facing terminal issues, but with any situations, there are people willing to take more risks than others. Is there any ability for that to say, I don't care, I'm going to take the risk. Can I have some? And then you get more data.
Probably not in this country. I mean, we do studies where things aren't regulatory approved, but there's other markets that sort of happens in, like South America and China and other places where they'll do things where, but not really here.
Yeah. And so I guess in conclusion, from everything you've said, you've said it very quickly, but get some advice. I mean, you can give it, like, really get your head around what is going to do the benefit of care, what is going to be affordable, what is going to work for the medical system. And I guess all of the medical systems are slightly different.
Yeah.
So you need to get a variety, depending on where you want to target, or would you say, depending on your device, go and target certain markets, or more try and... It's not the same everywhere, is it?
It's not. There's certain markets like, the Benelux area, Belgium, they're very good at digital and wearables.
Okay.
And some countries are good at implantables, and some,
But don't they just get more and more digital and wearables, and we have less? We everywhere should be diverse, shouldn't it?
Well, it's
the way it is.
It's just about funding and affordability for society, as we say. So, yeah, it's highly complex. It's not as easy. With the journey is got to be mapped out and right from the start. These companies need to understand value drivers and whether their company can make it and survive.
Is there anything finally you feel you haven't said, or to conclude, or to summarize?
Yeah, anybody out there with great ideas or technology, speak to us, and happy to always spend an hour with them.
You'll never get back.
We know, but so we get lots of really, really interesting things. The sooner that we learn about these ideas, the sooner we can give advice to companies and helping them on this journey to get them to patients faster.
And what's Michael's long-term plan?
Oh, well, we're now having to change direction massively as a business to work more with existing technologies. So it's carrying on the good work and helping to the NHS make decisions faster to adopt new things and make sure that we improve the life of the nation through technology. So yeah, it's great. There's a great.
That's what gets you out of bed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great. So we're going to move on to some fun bits now.
Go on then.
We're going to ask you on a quickfire round a few quick questions to get to know you a little bit better. Dee is cueing some music right now. You should know the answer to these questions.
Go on then.
So quick answers. Are you ready? All good? What was your first job?
Working in an office, admin.
Doing office admin. I love it. What was your worst job?
Oh, God. Probably the RAF.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I just RAF wasn't that great. I learned a lot, but I didn't really enjoy it. But learned a lot. So yeah.
Favorite subject at school?
Languages.
Oh, really? You're a linguist?
Well, bits, but yeah, I always liked languages. Yeah.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Funny enough, I remember saying I wanted to be the Prime Minister. So I don't know. I remember that. But not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, what a job
We
that
need
is.
another hour to talk about that one.
Yeah. Well, take the time you need. What did your parents want you to be?
Successful, happy.
Yeah.
But,
What did your parents do?
father was a policeman. So, yeah.
Was he really?
Yeah. He ran a big part of Wiltshire Police.
No way. Is that funny growing up with his father as a policeman?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah.
Does that mean you have to behave better?
Probably, yeah. It hasn't worked.
Do you do karaoke? What's your go-to karaoke song?
Yellow by, the Race by Yellow because there's no words or something like that. Or, oh yeah, the Ferris Bueller song because there's only a few words. So that's a good one.
Nice.
Oh yeah. You got it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That's such a moment of the film. Office
film.
dogs, business or bullshit?
Bring your dog to work. Where's your dog gone?
He's here.
Fantastic.
He's here.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
lad.
Bring him to work.
Have you ever been fired?
Yeah.
Have
It was
you?
the greatest thing. I actually spoke to somebody about this yesterday. I got fired from a job. It was just a reshuffle in the company and stuff. But actually, when I left that job, I got a really good one, and I wouldn't be where I am now had that not happened. So it was a good thing. Yeah.
Which it's often the worst things that happen to you in your life are often the best things, aren't they? Just
I
takes
actually
a while.
spoke to the guy and said to him a couple of years ago, I said, it was really good of you to fire me, Bill Ball, if you're listening. That was his name.
Bill Ball.
Bill Ball, yeah.
What
and
a
he
name.
got rid of me. But yeah, it was great because I walked into a job with a company in Newbury and never looked back. That was a good time. So yeah, that's what it's like, isn't it?
Fire people more often.
Yeah.
They will start a new life.
Just hope my boss isn't listening.
What's your vice?
This crazy swimming. I was talking to you about it earlier. I do this cold swimming. So I started this about 3 years ago. I swim in unheated water every day. And I'm talking 3 to 5, 600 meters of swimming a day in a cold pond or a warm pond, depending on the time of year. But I break ice and I swim in water. Yeah, it's good. Wakes you up.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's amazing. You were explaining how it changes your fat from brown to...
to brown, from normal to brown. I don't know what it is. Anyway,
the truth is of all of that is that we used to live in a very cold environment. This very warm environment we live in isn't normal. No one's ever tried it. When you put, it's like you can have a warm shower and then you can flip it to cold. And a lot of it you realize it's not actually painful to stand in a cold shower. It's just your fear. Your brain goes bananas. Your brain's like, what are you doing? But you're like, it doesn't hurt really.
It's less painful than running. I think, I get, within, I don't know, a few weeks time, it's going to be sort of January. January, February is the hardest time of the year where you have a little bit of ice on the pond and you just face that ice.
But when you break it all the way along.
Well, you have to. You get cut as well, but literally, I don't wear a wetsuit or anything. But literally, it's facing that fear. First thing in the morning, 8:15. There's something that it does to you. It's a really good way of getting rid of stress. Is to do something that's going to be hard and get it out of the way. And yeah, I really love the cold water swimming, and it doesn't bother me. Water.
Have you,
water.
out of interest, done a blood test or looked at yourself medically to see if there's been a big change?
Yeah. I haven't, but I was considering doing that. So yeah, to see what the effects are. But it's a good thing. Exercise, it's just something I do.
Five top tips or a top tip for entrepreneurs.
I like this. And I was on the way here, I was thinking, best advice. If you take care of the people if you take care of your people will take care of your customers and your business will take care of itself. I think, I read that on the wall of the Marriott.
If you say that as slowly,
if you take care of your people will take care of your customers and your business will take care of itself.
Wow, very good.
That was a Marriott thing. And I like that. So I'm lucky. People that work with me often stay and, we've got a great team of people and we all enjoy working and we all look after each other. And yeah, it's a challenging business now, but we're all motivated and we like what we do and we care about our customers and we care about patients. So
we're on to the favorite part of the show. We're going to name some stuff, and you've got to tell us whether you think these things are business or bullshit. You get a paddle, grab a paddle. I'll have a paddle too. Go on, give me a paddle. I can wave it around.
Whack it around.
Yeah. So when I ask you, you need to hold the paddle up clearly and also say the word because we're on the radio.
Yep.
And we might have a little debate about it.
Go on.
That's how we like to roll. So let's warm up with. Oh, I don't know if you get these in medical devices. So let's just warm up with an easy one. Royal warrants. Can you get royal warrants in medical devices?
In MedTech? Oh, I don't know.
The Queen used to put this up her butt.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not. I'm thinking about Queen's Awards for Industries and all those sort of good things that used to happen.
But would you buy a product out of interest if you saw it's used by the royal family? Do you feel that's
not necessary. No, you're right.
Are you going bullshit, are
Yeah.
you? I do find the influence. It depends what I'm buying, tea or something,
Yeah.
or you're buying loo roll and it's the Queen's loo roll. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah,
There's some aspect of it. Let's do a spicy one. Let's do Brexit. Business.
Yeah.
And tell me your thoughts on Brexit.
Well, fantastic thing that happened, but unfortunately not been executed, and it's a real shame.
How would you like to execute it?
I met Jeremy Hunt in the back
You have to
garden
think
of my.
about that.
I did in the back garden of my MP, and asked him whether he would reduce corporation tax to the sort of levels of Southern Ireland, and he agreed that it was a good idea and he would do it. But you see, it's going in the other direction, and I think that's a real shame. We've got we've got a little part of the world where corporation tax is lower and they're doing very well out of it, and that's just the starting point of it. I think
you effectively, some of what you're saying now, just to fill this in, corporation tax in Ireland is 12.5%.
Yeah.
They require the European Union, because it has a low rate of tax,
Yeah.
much lower than other European countries.
Yeah.
They require it to have a lot of substance. So that means you've got to have a building with people in it and all
Yeah.
of that. You
Yeah.
can't just sort of have holding companies and stuff like you can a bit more in the UK. But by not being part of Europe, all of that kind of goes out the window. We can do whatever the hell we want, you know.
That was always the
and
plan.
you would go for growth. You would cut the crap out of the tax.
The only way we're going to get out of this now is, I've never been so concerned about the future of the country as I am now. With we have to be business friendly. We have to bring entrepreneurs in. We have to have an attractive business environment to, and at the end of that, where these medical device companies, think like that. That's why Ireland is full of medical device companies. It's full of them.
And you are very concerned about a Labour government and where it's going.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And within all of this, I thought it was the worst marketed, which is something you would understand, plan ever. Liz Truss is in no build up, no nothing, just coming out with radical stuff. But if I was really honest, some of the radical stuff being thrown out, now they're like, we can never do what Liz Truss said. It was the worst executed plan ever.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually really anti a lot of the stuff they were doing, because it's the stuff you were alluding to.
Well, exactly,
say,
yeah. How do we as an economy grow so that we can generate, money and wealth to treat patients better, to have better roads, better healthcare systems, better, everything. And yeah, it's a very worrying environment now. But, I was all for, the UK has the right environment with the healthcare system, the data that runs all the way through it, a fantastic research infrastructure that we have with the NIHR to attract companies in and to nurture them and help to demonstrate the efficacy and safety of technologies in this great healthcare system. But yeah, it's the right environment for it. We're respected globally for it, and that was all in the plans. But we, going back to what I said earlier, the £10 million that was sent to the MHRA in March 23 about having the UK as the fastest place to bring technologies. I've not seen anything really happen that's helped to speed up the regulatory approval here. So, there's so much opportunity here, but something needs to change.
We seem to be pulled though, I said to you on the phone the other day, I'm a centrist, because I feel that No, if you're on the left, then you hate rich people, and if you're on the right, you hate poor people. Whatever. I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's a bit like that. It's a bit sort of like, well, you're over here, so you don't like those people if you're over here. And it's like, for me, I feel like we've just still got to be a bit more in the center, which is everybody's unhappy. What's the definition of a compromise? Everybody's unhappy.
Yeah.
Because I'm brought up a little bit like you to say, look, it's proven that if you lower the tax rate, more people will come. International entrepreneurs will go bananas. Everyone will throw it. I use the example of my grandfather who started this business, who didn't build it because the top rate of tax was basically 100%, 90%, 95%. So what's the point? I thought he was a lazy bugger, but actually it just turned out, that generation, until Thatcher cut it, weren't really motivated. So, I mean, there's a simple example that it definitely has an effect.
Yeah.
But within you, there is a passion on this subject. Did it start with Brexit, or have you always been quite passionate about the political situation?
As I've been running businesses now since 2005, and been running successful businesses, and employing people, and everybody sort of benefiting from it. But I think now, the more I'm into this, the more I understand the healthcare system and the monetary things, and just the environment, and I'm much more close to reading it all, and sort of
won't Labour throw more? I'm trying to veer away from the politics slightly, but at the same time talk about your subject. Won't Labour put more money into the healthcare system? Is this not going to be good for you?
It all depends on where it goes, doesn't it, really? It all depends on where it goes. And, Boris promised 40 new hospitals, but you've got to staff those hospitals, and it's technologies that can help to reduce, people from doing jobs like artificial intelligence, reading x-rays and scans. And there's all that stuff out there that's hopefully going to make its way into the healthcare system. But yeah.
What about Bitcoin?
Not too sure about that, really. I'm thinking about currency at the moment, and pound and dollar. I think that all makes a big difference for the future of everything, from buying oil from places to, most of these medical devices are bought in dollars from America. So currency is an interesting thing, but I'd ask you that question, really. But so I'd say not sure.
Not sure
on Bitcoin.
Drinking at lunch.
Moderation, why not?
But the business.
Yeah, why not?
A little bit.
It's always good to relax with, inventors and executives, and get to know them and understand.
What about unlimited holidays?
Oh God, well, we've got that coming, haven't we? 4-day week or whatever it's going to be.
Do you think?
I mean, unlimited holidays. It's that balance, isn't it? Flexible working, I'm for that, but unlimited holidays. Well.
I've known you a little while, Michael, and actually, there's certainly there's a little more of a cloud over your head than normal. Is that the circumstances of your business is just
it's hard. We would enjoy getting all these things and having some really good technologies, and it's harder. We are getting them. I'm going off to Toronto next month and going to the big MedTech conference.
You like to win.
I like to win, and that's the thing. I'm not used to being in an environment where it's harder. I've had that. We had that sweet spot with companies coming to Europe first, but going back to what you were saying, how do you get technologies in? Well, you deregulate and make it attractive, and that's exactly what's happened in America with the FDA and making it easier for approvals and access there. So,
what about Instagram?
Yeah, I don't really. I do use that a bit. It's like a visual Facebook, but it's quite a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do a couple more. My word is my bond. Use your paddle.
Oh, use your paddle. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And how about family dynasties? You're sitting in one.
Yeah, I know. I've got to say.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I think there's a good thing. You're a great family. I've known, you and your.
I always remember you spending some time in the back of a van going around America.
Absolutely, the church van with James. That was interesting. Yeah, they were good days. And the UK was out there flying the flag, saying come to the UK and helping. Being outwardly. Bring tech, and we would have great times. I think 3 weeks in Texas. That was fun.
Yeah, big up James Uri, the amazing person he is. Let's do one more thing. Where are you on? Let's do a controversial one. Charities.
Oh, now you're asking. I don't know really. I am not. I've had some very, very negative experience with medical charities.
Yeah.
And particularly where they're funded by pharma and medical device tries to get into them, but I'm not going to mention any. But
so we'll just say that so at least understand the point. A charity predominantly funded by pharma.
Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of the medical charities have got massive influxes of cash from pharma.
And then you don't sell medical devices.
If you have a medical device that may compete with the pharmaceutical, that can be quite an interesting experience.
Wow.
Medical devices
because the charity may try and stop you.
It's all often about, when you go to a charity, and charity make a big difference with approval of technologies, or they did in the old days with NICE when they were doing what they did. But they would talk to charities and ask charities, what do you think of this? Is it good for your patients? And they would have a big voice. But I have experienced times.
Wait a second, charities have patients. Well, charities are hospitals.
So where you're talking about certain charities that actually are there to support research or to they are asked as stakeholders and decision making in policies around the introduction of new technologies, and they're asked about them. But it can be challenging sometimes where you have a lot of pharmaceutical money going into some of these medical charities to compete, because MedTech are a much poorer relation to pharma.
Well, we only need to think of the Sacklers family. I found, I don't know if you've watched Dose, but I just found that story it's just an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I think the bit when they got everyone addicted to oxycodone, and then they did the bit about, they need more. That's why, how the hell they sold this story, that doctors were then telling everyone. It's that sort of brainwashing thing, isn't it? That if you receive something from the right source, if a doctor says to you, oh, no, Andrew, you're not addicted. But, it's such an incredible story, the oxycodone story. Yeah. Fascinating, effective drug. I watched my sister take it and it really helped her in her last days, as in last months. It's obviously incredibly effective, but anyway, just amazing. And then I guess there's a sort of element of, where there's quite a lot of those examples of maybe people not doing the best things to make money, and then they have lots of money and they pump it into charities as a sort of guilt relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do thought leadership.
Yep. Business, definitely.
I guess in a way you're doing thought leadership.
Yep.
We're going to do one more. One for luck. I think we will do... how about conferences?
Yeah, I enjoy those. Business, yeah.
Business?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a conference, you do a bit of business at the conference.
Yeah, good to meet the industry and meet people and share ideas.
Isn't it about a few drinks after the conference?
Yeah, they can be good. Nice meals.
Nice meals. Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming to do this and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Anyone who's got a medical device and wants to sort their lives out, you know who to call, as they say. That has been this week's Business Without Bullshit. Just to make clear, to find you, you're called Device Access, is it?
Yep.
Brilliant. Deviceaccess.com?
Deviceaccess.co.uk.
Brilliant. So there you have it. That was this week's episode of Business Without Bullshit. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Romeo. Ciao.